tax-financed.
All right, now the Data Protection Bill 2019 public hearings is underway at County Hall. The National Assembly Committee on Communication, Information and Technology and Innovation is collecting personal views or public views on personal and private data by government and private institutions. Let's just cross over to that particular sitting at County Hall and listen in.
Thank you very much, Jesse. These are the National Assembly, that is its Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation has been getting, just been having public hearings to do with the Data Protection Bill 2019. A very, very critical aspect of the law in that the country does not have a Data Protection Act for those, especially public and private entities that get some of these information or personal data, some of which is very, very sensitive. That's why Kenya as a country wants to legislate this particular law to ensure that this kind of data that is surrendered to public institutions and or private entities is protected. This particular law was before the Senate, before it was referred to the National Assembly, and despite the fact that there is a pull and push between the Senate and National Assembly on who actually should own the bill, we are today, the National Assembly has the opportunity to interrogate this particular bill. And joining me is Kiambu County Women Member of Parliament, Gathoni Wambushomba, just with regard to this data protection bill.
Thank you very much. It is true indeed. Today we have spent the better part of this morning hearing the submissions from the public, members of public, the stakeholders who had expressed interest to come and share with us as members of Parliament who are helping in the process of making this bill. And the county hall was full with a lot of submissions, and we are happy that the members of public are very sensitive in issues of data protection. So today we have had a lot of submissions, and more particularly submissions relating to personal information, because that is where there's a lot of heat. To what extent is personal information personal? And to what extent can we protect that data against access of unauthorized persons and institutions?
In fact, looking at it in the deliberations, I saw you express concern about inheritance and also the senior citizens in our society. What are your concerns with regard to data protection?
Currently, like you all know, we are Africans, and Africanism is our business. We believe in inheritance, and inheritance sometimes can become clumsy when everybody wants to access information of the late, of the dead person. And sometimes we have an unprocedural way of sharing that information. Remember, information about what I own, information of what I have saved, information about my email account, my M-Pesa account, and such like financial related information is personal. And therefore, we must come up with a law that is going to protect that personal information, and more particularly, information regarding the vulnerable and the elderly persons of the society. Most of them are vulnerable to exposure because they don't know what to do to protect that kind of information. And surprisingly, you hear there's a lot of property that is uncollected or unclaimed because there was no a clear link between what I have and what you know I have, because it is personal. And therefore, today, as a member of Parliament, especially representing the vulnerable and the affirmative groups, I raised my concern that we need to come up with a way of protecting information relating to the dead so that we can be able to fast-track and create efficiency along the areas of inheritance, because only those who know about existence of information are able to access property through inheritance.
And maybe looking at it as we deal with data protection, there's something to do with education also, where we have students or children, pupils, getting their information maybe on the academic performance. And I think this is part of this data is in public domain. How then do we go about maybe protecting it against abuse?
I am of the opinion as a parent that we should not allow schools and institutions to commercialize our personal information in terms of academic performance. I have seen a lot of public schools and even private schools and public schools advertising their ableness, their success, their victory, using information that is based on their children who are students in that institution. Some of them put even adverts in the newspaper, others they advertise using TVs and radio and quoting certain children who scored very highly, and in the process they also quote children who did not perform. And that to me is commercialization of private personal information. So I submitted in this committee, and I believe this is something that is going to create a lot of public debate. Because to what extent is private information in issues of my performance? For example, if I'm a student, a candidate, a class 8 candidate in a certain school, and I score 410, must my information be shared in the newspaper? And if I'm the last in that school, I scored, say, 200 or 100 marks, should my name be put in a public notice board for everybody to see that I was the last one? I think to me that is a crossover that we must stop. And for me as a legislator, I am keen to make sure I protect that child who is last so that we don't injure the self-esteem of that child.
Very, very sensitive information and matters to do with data protection. And now there is a chance for you to present your memorandum and issues with regard to how data should be protected both in public and private entities that are managing both this data, some of which is very, very personal, and how this particular data protection bill, once it is enacted into law, then some of these challenges that we are facing, like what the legislator just mentioned about academics, some even touching on inheritance, will be fully addressed. From the County Hall in Parliament Precincts, I'm Patrick Amimo, back to the studio.